Welcome to Finding Holiness, where we delve into timeless Torah wisdom, revealing the sacred in everyday moments. Join us on a journey to elevate your spirituality and discover holiness in every aspect of life. I'm your host, Rabbi David Kadosh, and together, let's embark on a path of spiritual exploration. I hope you enjoy this next episode. All right, good evening. We are studying Masechet Yevamot, Perek Vav, Mishna Hey. Some interesting Mishnayot today on tap. Kohen Hediot lo yisa Ailonit. An ordinary Kohen cannot marry an Ailonit. An Ailonit is a woman who will never physically mature and therefore she cannot have children. Ela imken yesh lo isha ubanim, unless the Kohen has another wife who can already bear children, or he already has children. So in that case, he could marry this woman, this Ailonit, who cannot have a child. Of course, Jewish men are obligated in the mitzvah of Periya Veribya, and therefore, a Kohen to marry an Ailonit, he cannot do so unless he has children from elsewhere. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees, and he says, "Af al pi sheyesh lo isha ubanim lo isa Ailonit." Even if he has another wife with children or other children, he cannot marry an Ailonit, shehi zona ha'amnu b'Torah. Because this is the definition of a zona which the Torah talks about. In the Torah, isha zona v'chalala lo yikachu, that's in reference to the Kohen in Parashat Emor, that the Kohen cannot marry a zona. And this, according to Rabbi Yehuda, this is a zona, which is a woman who's incapable of having children. So therefore, a Kohen can never marry an Ailonit, even if he already has children from another marriage. But the rabbis disagree with how Rabbi Yehuda defines a zona. En zona ela gioret umshuchreret vesheniv'ala beilat zenut. The Chachamim say a zona is only a female convert, a Kenani slave woman who was freed, and a woman who engaged in forbidden acts of relations with a man who was forbidden to her. Those are the definitions of a zonah. Today, the term zonah is used very loosely. It's not really much often in reference to halakha, probably only according to the last definition here, a woman who engaged in forbidden relations. That is commonly used as a zonah, but nowadays, unfortunately, the word zonah is thrown out there, not necessarily have the halachic ramifications as we do here. We do follow the Chachamim in this case, and not Rabbi Yehuda. Speaking of Periya Veribya, Mishnah Vav, the last Mishnah of Perek Vav, Lo yibatel adam miPeriya Veribya ela im ken yesh lo banim. A person cannot refrain from trying to have children unless he already has children, meaning you have to constantly fulfill the mitzvah of Periya Veribya. So if a man who has never fulfilled this mitzvah must marry a woman who is able to, as we're going to see. Bet Shammai Omrim, famous machloket between Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel. Bet Shammai says, Shenez Zecharim. The father must have two males. Bet Hillel Omrim, Bet Hillel says it's Zachar u'Nekeva. He has to have one male and one female. Shneimar Zachar u'Nekeva bera'am. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created them male and female. So where does Bet Shammai get his reason from? Why does Bet Shammai say that you have to have two males? The Chachamim explain that he derives it from Moshe Rabbeinu. The actions of Moshe Rabbeinu, we read in a couple of weeks ago in Parashat Shemot. Moshe Rabbeinu, after having two sons, Gereshom and Eliezer, he stopped living with his wife. And so we see from here that if Moshe Rabbeinu stopped at two, then that's what you need to have, two. Bet Hillel holds Zachar u'Nekeva, one male, one female. Bet Hillel learns from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu commanded Adam HaRishon to have, Zachar u'Nekeva bera'am. So therefore, a person who only has two boys, he doesn't fulfill the mitzvah according to Bet Hillel, and according to Bet Shammai, a person who has one son and one daughter doesn't fulfill the mitzvah. So now, how does Bet Hillel explain Moshe Rabbeinu's actions? That's a good question, right? If Bet Shammai proves it from Moshe Rabbeinu, how does Bet Hillel explain Moshe Rabbeinu? So Bet Hillel will say that Moshe Rabbeinu was a very special case because Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking directly to God. So therefore, once he spoke to him, he had to remain in a state of purity, and therefore he had to separate from his wife because he could be called upon at any moment to speak to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore he could not be with his wife, and that's why he had to stop at 2. What about Bet Shammai, right? How does Bet Shammai understand pretty good proof for Bet Hillel, right? God said, Zacharu nekeva beram. So why does Bet Shammai say different? So he argues that the creation of the world was a special case, because if Chava had not been created, okay, which was the Zacharu Nekeva, then there would have been no other woman to bear children. So he wants to say that the creation of the world was specific so that we have a woman in order to bear children. But if now in 2022 or whatever year that came afterwards, there are a lot of women who can bear children. You don't necessarily have to have a boy and a girl. You can just have 2 boys, and that's learned from Moshe. So it's very interesting Mishnah over there. Idea on how they both explain it. Nasa Isha, the Mishnah continues and says, the man married a woman, v'shaha ima 10 shanim, and he remained with her for 10 years, ve'lo yalda, and did not have any children. Eno rashai libatel, he's not permitted to refrain from fulfilling the mitzvah, and he has to go through a divorce and find another woman to marry in order that he can have children. Geresha, when he divorces her, muteret li naseh le'acher, she's permitted to now go marry another man, even if that other man has not fulfilled the mitzvah of Periyah Veribiyah yet, she can go marry another man. Verashai hasheni lishot ima 10 shanim, and the second husband also is permitted to remain with her for 10 years. It was famously known that the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who could not have any children, what he used to do, this is halacha l'maaseh. He would divorce and remarry his wife every 10 years. That's what he did in hopes to have children. But that's something what he did. He wrote a get, gave it to her, and then remarried. A lot of people don't know that, but it's written down in his. How did this in 10 years? We learned that from Rivka and Yitzchak and Rivka. That's where we see that from. If you calculate there, they waited 10 years. Okay, ve'im hipila. Let's say she became pregnant and she miscarried. Then moneh misha'a she'ipila. You get a reset. You get a reset button. All right. So you got 10 years from the moment of the miscarriage, because she did indeed get pregnant. She couldn't carry the baby, but she got pregnant. Therefore, we start counting the 10 years from when she miscarried. Lastly, in this Mishnah, ha'ish metzuve al periyah veribiyah. It is the man who is commanded to be fruitful and multiply. Aval lo ha'isha, but not the woman. The woman is not commanded to fulfill this mitzvah. Which means that a woman can remain unmarried her whole life, and that's fine. While a man has to actually go and find a suitable partner so that he can fulfill this mitzvah. Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka says, Al shenehem hu omer, it's concerning both, where the Torah says, Vayvarech otam Elokim, vayomer lahem Elokim peru urvu. That Hashem spoke to both of them. So according to Rabbi Yochanan ben Beroka, it is both Adam and Chava who are obligated in this mitzvah. Okay, very good.
So where does it give proof that it should only be the man? Where does the Mishnah give the proof that only the man?
If you look at the wording of the pasuk, I don't have the exact pasuk, not this one specifically, but there's another pasuk there. The pasuk of Perur vu milu ta'aretz, I think, is directed only to men. Perur vu vechivshua. The Rav Martenua brings down vechivshua, but vechivshua is spelled without the vav, so it's spelled Kivshua is spelled Kaf Bet Shin Hey, which could be read as Kavsha or Kovesh Ota, conquering her. Haser Vav. Ha'isha Darko Lichbosh Et Ha'isha Hu Metzuve Al Periya V'Ribya. The man who has the obligation, who fills the role of conqueror, of military conqueror, not actually fighting his wife, but he's the power source in the relationship, right? He's the one who is given the mitzvah periya v'ribya. It is, I believe, it's man, only man. Yes. Okay. Fine. Perek Zayin, Mishnah Aleph. So just a little introduction to this Mishnah. We know that a Kohen is allowed to eat teruma. A Kohen, may eat teruma, and all the people that he's acquired, whether through marriage, as we're going to see, or slaves, can also eat teruma. So his wife, his Canaanite slaves. If his wife owns slaves and then gets married to the Kohen, so they are allowed to eat teruma. But if the Kohen's wife is forbidden to him, for example, she's a divorcee, then she's disqualified from eating teruma, and also her slaves may not eat the teruma. So now, when the woman brings into a marriage property, some of it remains hers, and the husband only has rights to it and to benefit from it. We call this property melog. It's called melog property. And then some of it becomes his outright, and that's known as Tzonu Barzel. Tzon Barzel. So now, our Mishnah is going to talk about certain situations. Almana le Kohen Gadol. If you have a widow who is married to a Kohen Gadol, or Gerusha b'chalutza le Kohen Hediot, or a divorcee or chalutza married to an ordinary Kohen. So in both these cases, she is disqualified from eating teruma. Hichnisa lo avde melog ve'avde tzonu barzel. If she brought into the marriage some slaves who are melog, that means they belong to her and he's just benefiting from them, or tzonu barzel, he acquires totally. Avde melog lo yechelu ba teruma. Then these slaves cannot eat teruma because she owns them, and now she's disqualified, and they can't eat teruma. But avde tzon barzel yochelu. But the slaves of tzon barzel may eat teruma because he owns them, he acquires them totally, and he's not, and therefore this eved is not disqualified from eating teruma. Now, ve'elu hen avde melog. These are the melog slaves. Im metu. That the arrangement between the husband and wife is that if these slaves die during the marriage, metu lah. If it's a melog slave, then the loss is on her. That death is on her. It's her loss. Ve'imotiru, and if the slave increases in value, so he went to Good Life Fitness and became stronger, so now his value in the market is higher. So hotiru la, it's her increase. It all belongs to her. Afapishu chaya bimzonotam, and even though the husband is responsible for providing this slave the food, they may not eat teruma because she's disqualified to the husband and they're owned by the wife. These tzon barzel, these are the tzon barzel slaves. If they die, okay, metulo, the death is his. Hotiru, and if they increase in value, then the increase is his gain. Since he's responsible for guaranteeing them and he absorbs their loss, these tzon barzel slaves are able to eat teruma because the responsibility defines him as their owner. Okay, we'll stop here and we'll continue next week. Be'ezrat Hashem.